My name is Yuri Griko. I was born in former Soviet Union. I got education in St. Petersburg in the area of biophysics. I continue my career in Biological Center of Russian Academy of Science. At that time it's Soviet Union, of course. In Institute of Protein Research when I grow as a kind of PhD student, senior scientist, laboratory chief. And after that I spent some time to advance in my career, going to Germany, UK, and finally I came to Johns Hopkins University. I was invited in 1991, where I just decided to a little bit change my research toward protein engineering. And then I was invited to NASA for a program of development of radiation protection against space radiation. So that's actually briefly, I'm already 10 years working at NASA. Somehow happened that, even at my childhood and kind of everybody was dreaming about space exploration, especially in the 1960s, you know. I was fortunate actually to meet Yuri Gagarin at that time when he, after flight, was traveling in Siberia. And it turns out that, well, when I was already more than 40 years, I again returned to space exploration. Why it's important for me, I believe, first of all, generation of space enthusiasts, you know, and we just kind of extrapolate what we have in 1960s, and we believe that it's at the year 2000 we're supposed to be somewhere beyond of orbit, somewhere in the Mars. Even in Russia at that time it was song about that the apple trees will bloom on the Mars, and you know, some kind of inspiration. People were very enthusiastic. So I believe that I'm now currently working in a laboratory of countermeasure development. That laboratory was funded at NASA at 2005 with goal to develop protection against biomedical protection, of course, against space radiation. I believe that it's my contribution now, my turn, to actually develop something which really contribute to space exploration, because we believe for man fly, it's very important actually to provide safety and healthy environment for astronauts. I believe we all understand that we not kind of belong to space. It's necessity to be in space. All evolution actually is grounded to Earth, and we on the bottom. It's a gravitational hole. Problem is that I believe personally that life in space is possible, but again, I'm repeating, it's necessity. We can jump from planet to planet, but gravity is our home. We should admit that microgravity is one of the factors which most important and unusual factor which we met in space flight. So organism responds absolutely amazing to that. You know, it's just kind of transformation, all physiology, which naturally never happen. And question is that can we adapt to that without significant alteration in physiology? Because even now, after decades in space, we still not so comfortable. Hollywood movies, Star Treks, generation ships, which we easy consider that it's so simple to live in space, in orbital flight. We know that we protected magnetic field of Earth from radiation. And radiation, one inevitable factor, which I believe that in a cumulative way can destroy all living creature. So we challenge a lot of problem in space beyond orbit, and even last data which we get from Curiosity in terms of radiation really bothering us, because it tells us that radiation on our way to Mars and back to Earth, it's much higher than we expect previously. So this means that we have a gap. which we need to a lot of efforts to develop something to protect and provide actually for astronaut healthy environment. Second, of course, in microgravity, it's bone loss and muscle atrophy. And this is actually what makes International Space Station very good laboratory to study bone kind of problem, and also aging problem, because we know that aging accelerated in space environment. I believe the two problems, radiation and bone and muscle atrophy, is challenging us, especially for our trip to Mars, establishing some base on Moon, where microgravity still exists, and we know that Mars have no magnetic field to protect against radiation. It's again a problem still remain, but we're still enthusiastic that I believe that 2020, 30, those problems will be solved to provide safety environment. One of such problem is intracranial pressure. And yeah, it was found probably over the last 3 years that astronauts somehow have problems with vision. And sometimes it becomes bad, sometimes it surprisingly becomes better. And you know, that was kind of a really unexpected problem. And NASA over the last 2 years put a lot of efforts to investigate this problem. And what was found that indeed intracranial pressure actually provides some pressure on the eye, which actually, because of deformation, causes change in vision. For astronauts, it's gradual, of course. Yeah, we don't know yet how it will be on our way to Mars. It may happen that such accumulative increase in intracranial pressure will require from us some additional research or countermeasure development, because it's hard to say what is underlying reason of this intracranial pressure. And the mental factor. Of course, we know a lot that it's insulated space. It's special relation between crew. Activity of astronauts or crew members in this Mars 500 mission was reminding absolutely profile which we experienced putting animals in hypermetabolic stasis. At the beginning, activity was very high, then activity in the middle was very, very low. They worked like hibernating people, and at the end it's again increased and developed to some plateau. That's what we expect during the Mars mission. And of course we know that as soon as we will be on the Mars orbit, we need some kind of acclimation against, actually, to prepare astronauts for landing. So you believe that it's time that we just kind of substitute our enthusiasm to explore space with some business idea, because business and technology start to develop in such a way that it should be certainly balanced, should be rational to be in space. And it's a driving force, I believe. It's very important, because just to be in space for fun or to demonstrate progress in technology, it's already not anymore the reason to be in space like it was at the beginning of space exploration era, which we compete, for example, two countries, for example, Russia, Soviet Union and America compete who is better in space exploration. Now it's about business, of course, yeah? And we need to link this business to certainly space colonization, because we all know that problem exists. Eventually it will be time when we will be probably statistically exposed to some cosmic catastrophic events, yeah? To provide some kind of information before asteroids or any catastrophic event may happen. Question is that how we can be protected. I mean, prepare for protection at that point, it's still unknown. But business, I believe, again, coming back, should be linked to space exploration. That's why NASA, for example, trying to commercialize space flight. Well, I would describe it as a positive, of course, yeah, unbelievably. Another thing, whether it's meet to our expectations, because, you know, my generation, like, you know, it's 1960s, 1970s, like I already mentioned, was extrapolating and believed that at this time we should be beyond of orbit, right? Yes, we have amazing actually progress in technology development. Biotech and biotechnology industry, biomedicine, it's kind of something which really accumulates so much data and results that we believe that soon it will be breakthrough. And we need something which inspire young people for space exploration. So considering 10 years progress, of course, no doubt, we have nothing, something which we never can dream about. At the same time, we, as a young generation, my impression, in a very interesting status, which a little bit bothering me, and I can share with you, problem like that. In early times, space exploration, people were kind of more rely on real space exploration. Yeah, they want to go to orbit. They kind of, you know, euphoria around this. Everybody exciting. Whole kind of world was actually exciting. First step in space, and everybody knew that it's real. You know, we're there. We're moving to orbit, moving to moon. Now, the problem is that we, over the last 10 years, Hollywood creates some kind of virtual reality for us. When we can explore, or they make perception that we explore space, we're already there. I mean, we don't need to build launchers, rockets. We don't need to solve any problems for manned mission. We're already there. In reality, science now can actually put you in state of whatever you want. They can just remove certain memory, you know, they can make emotionally exciting, you can provide confidence, they can influence your brain activity in such way that they can manage your behavior, your emotional state, and also they can give you same impression like you're already in space. That's actually what I believe a Hollywood movie giving us. And when they substitute reality, and people probably already not so focused because it's very difficult. Better to spend like $50 or $100 million for Hollywood movie, which gives huge population impression, which they would get same impression if astronauts go there. But to be in real space flight is much more expensive, and you need to solve much more problems than just buy a ticket for the movie. And I believe that it's a little bit suppressive in terms of development. People losing sense that they did not accomplish a lot of things which they should do. And this has slowed down us a little bit. Well, you know, we should be realistic again. You know, then you know probably an answer that for 10 years we cannot do much. We plan to be on the moon and in Mars in 2030s, right? You guys, generation which will explore Mars and colonize Mars, not we. And it's you leaders there. You will make decision about that. It's absolutely certain. And this decision would base it on how fast technology will develop. What I would like probably to see is, which I mentioned, something like breakthrough in technology. In reality, let's suppose we will build best rocket, which delivered to us to there, right? We still have problems being in space. And if we're going to Mars, we challenge a lot of problems we wouldn't prepare completely to solve. But I believe that manned space exploration still have some limitation. We cannot go so far and we should admit it. And especially 10, 20 years, you know, we probably will be still in the same place unless Hollywood will kind of move us further. And what I believe would be better, can we consider a completely different way for space exploration? I'm talking about something like very interesting ideas which start to develop now, but still not recognized as a reality. And NASA, some scientists, I guess it's Dr. White, working toward bringing this idea to reality about warp of space-time. Idea is that yes, probably at least scientifically it sounds pretty reasonable if we can compress space and time in front of spaceship and expand it behind. We will be in special bubble which would allow us to travel with speed of light and even probably faster, so that instead of 17 years to go to Alpha Centauri, we will be there probably in 2 weeks. Of course, you know, this sounds very fantastic, yeah, and not real, but physical scientists, actually theoreticians, working on this and saying, yeah, it might happen. Why not? In my case, I believe that why we would kind of, it's of course my dream, but in reality, why we should physically travel? Why our body should be somewhere if we can just probably put our mind. Imagine, for example, that NASA would be able to integrate our consciousness in an electromagnetic field. And you know that recently, a couple of weeks ago, it was first program which passed Turing test for intelligence. Yeah, so program was intelligent enough to convince 33% of experts that it's real human, like 13 years boy. It's answered different questions very intelligently, and this is first actually breakthrough in this direction. If we can somehow, for example, to program our mind in an operational way to electromagnetic field, so you don't need body, right? You can be everywhere you want. But we need to expect that young people probably are thinking about something like that. And it's very, very important to have at least some kind of idea that you can solve all problems with one solution, or solving one very important scientific problem. To put this in reality, I don't think it's possible in the next 10 years, but I am very optimistic that in probably 20, 30 years, something like that happen. Even for space exploration, which I make kind of link, I believe that brain research and working with human consciousness would be one of the part which we need to consider for space exploration. You're right, that's a very exciting question. Yeah, I believe that we're not ready to accept such kind of position because our past. But at the same time, take a look on human evolution, how much space we have. Evolutionary, as in animals, we already kind of reached some point when we cannot develop much. We need something like significant transformation. Better brain, I mean, it's absolutely possible, yeah, mentally you can be capable to do, but it's still limitation. I believe that we have in our human evolution limitation. When we're talking to transfer our intelligence, individual consciousness to another level, because that actually topic of evolution so far, right? It's human intelligence, which makes us unique and so different. How to get there? And you're right, yeah, now just a lot of successful research shows that, yeah, we can just actually transfer our mind, we can just turn on TV, computer, work on a distance just because chip implanted. And a lot of paralyzed people already have some kind of distance robotic manipulation with a lot of different accessories. Yes, we're going over there. And question, of course, ethical and moral, whether we would consider normal if humans have another carrier than our real body. We still have DNA. Yeah? DNA is very sensitive to radiation. Yeah, if we would have holes, or we just kind of have problem with magnetic field, we expose and whole Earth's population will vanish. We cannot protect human race in this case, right? I mean, nothing can protect. And from this point of view, that if we would transfer our consciousness, our intelligence to more appropriate, more safe and reliable carrier than our body, it certainly would be probably better. We would have much more capability to do this. And we have very big progress in this direction. People probably not openly talking because they don't want to admit that you will be a robot or something like that. And in reality, question of physiological death becomes somehow, it's behind. We're just in completely different status. Yes, I believe that it's, it's my personal opinion, but I believe that, yes, if we move in this direction, it will be evolutionary justified way to protect human race. Of course, we will be not humans in this case, but if it's just our way for evolution, why not? I really like young people because it's what moves probably whole society. You know, all revolutions in science, technology, politics, and economy probably happened because young people somehow broke very conservative walls, which were already supposed to be not there. I wish that young people will take more position in social life and in science. In real life, we have a lot of people, old people with experience, which living longer, and somehow, it's my kind of, again, opinion, they still slow down a little bit, young people, and we need to give them space to explore and participate in our life more than they're doing now. They should take leadership position in many, actually, domain of societies. Same for space exploration. And this gives me some kind of confidence that progress in science and technology will still be as we expected. So for young Bulgarian, I believe that they should be integrated in a community. I believe that they should feel that they everywhere, everything open for them, because they could be integrated at any actually level of society and science, technology, social media. Don't feel that you in Bulgaria. In spite of that, I believe that people should be proud. They have some kind of origin. They should follow their tradition. They should keep them and respect them because it's kind of nest when they came. But being in this world, we already integrated. I wish that what we discussed today, like space exploration, like where we're going, they would accomplish and would be probably happy that they did it for their lifespan.